What's going on, guys? It's Greg from East Coast Eyes. Today we've got a review of the all-new Hammer 500, and we've also got an all-new backdrop because we're in the new warehouse. You guys have to wait a little bit for the tour, unfortunately. But let's get right into this head. Defensive players always feel like they're a little bit neglected, so it's really cool to see a new one come out. So I've got the old Hammer and the new Hammer. This one came out years ago. It might have been 2013. But it's been out for quite some time, and they took a long time to update it. And so when it came out, this was one of the first, this is a defensive head, a defensive name, marketed specifically toward defenders, and people really loved it. But it had a couple big problems, and we'll get into those a little bit later. But the basic specs are the new Hammer is going to cost $90, which is a great price. That's pretty much what you'd like to see for all top-end heads now, comparable to the tank. It weighs just a little bit over 5.6 ounces, and it is just a tiny bit lighter than the old one. It comes in white, black, and gray, and that's pretty much it for the specs, the things you need to know. It's out right now. You can buy it wherever. So let's get into the look a little bit. So basically it looks, at first glance, almost exactly like the old Hammer, wherein it has the same kind of sidewall strut pattern. It's updated with tons of new texture, which I really like. It has this really rough looking texture that gives it a rugged look. I think they did a good job with that. And then a different kind of micro beaded texture down here at the bottom. Then some mattes and glosses. STX has done a really good job making all their heads look really high end as of late. They moved the struts down a little bit, so you can see comparing them directly. The struts on the old one are just a little bit higher. You can see bottom to bottom here. They're lined up, shifted down, pretty much exactly one strut, which is really nice and looks good. Other than that, slight cosmetic updates. That's about it. So let's move on to kind of the face shape and the overall strut pattern, the look, and the feel. So the face shape improvement is probably one of my favorites that they've done. People would always ask, a lot of LSMs would want to get a defensive head. I always felt like the Hammer and the tank, they were all way too wide, and that's why you saw even at the highest level some defensive players playing with Stallion U's, Surgeons, because they wanted a more pinched head but didn't have one that was stiff enough or defensive enough. And so now what they did, you can see this one, old Hammer, had a fully gradual face shape, no kind of pinch point at all. It was just flared out the whole way, and it's extremely wide. This is good for some defenders. It's great for knocking down passes, picking up ground balls on the end of a 60-inch pole, and catching passes when you kind of have to get control of it a little easier. But for this one, they just kept a very similar face shape. The narrowest point is still the same, and the widest point is still the same. But right here, they put that little pinch and flare point, which is fantastic. This helped out a lot with stringing, and it's just gonna help out a lot with ball control, made it look a little nicer. So if you're one of those guys that was like, I wanna play LSM, I wanna shoot, kind of like Scott Ratliff does, but I don't want that super wide defensive head. This isn't pinched by any means, but it definitely helps. And that's probably one of my favorite features that they improved about this head. They added something called the strike plate, which is up here on the corner. I really don't think this was functional. I think it was just kind of a look feature for them to say this is where you're supposed to check with. It's a little thicker, so it might have a tiny bit of strength and durability, but overall not a ton there. Their other big feature is this speed scoop. I left the sticker on so you can kind of see what the branding is like, but take that off now. But essentially what it is this rounded scoop on the back. So most heads you'll see they just have this split. See right here, it just has a little split and a ledge, and it just changes planes. Here you've actually tucked the string holes up under this rounded ledge, and that's just going to give you more surface area to scoop with, which I like. You can come at it more angles because it's extremely rounded, and that's really, really good for ground balls, which is the second most important thing to checking for defensemen. So this was a great idea. Under Armour kind of has the same thing going on, but in a different way, and so this was their way of making a rounded scoop for a defensive player. Great feature, definitely helps. And the other thing they did on the front of the scoop is kind of cored out some of this material, and overall made the whole head stiffer. They've got C-channel, which they've had for forever. And so I thought that this would make the scoop really, really flexible, and in turn it really didn't, which was nice. We actually did some testing with drop towers in our MTS machine, because the old Hammer had huge problems with warping really wide from poke checks. So we did drops on the top, we did MTS, pressing it all the way down to about a ½ inch on the top, and this head performed way better than a bunch of the other ones in these real replicating stress tests, which we really like to see, because my brother, who plays LSM, he has one that's super wide and flat and short now, and this definitely held up better than the old Hammer. So all the improvements they made definitely worked out. So it's good to see it's going to have more long-term durability, less warping, and it is a little bit stiffer. I wouldn't say it's stiffer than the old Hammer just in the the top of the face, but the old hammer, I think this led to a lot of the warping, had a big problem in the back. It was actually really flexible in the back as compared to the front. And the new hammer has definitely fixed that. It's definitely stiffer in the back, which I think was causing the warping issues. Finally, we'll move into the stringing, which is important for defensive players. Even though they don't focus on it all that much, you kind of need a pocket that's a lot of hold and a little bit of whip. So as I mentioned before, that pinch point really helped with the stringing. Other than that, everything is exactly the same. All the holes are the same. C-channel, I still don't like to string with, but you can still make it happen. Just doesn't, the knots don't sit correctly on that really wide, flat bottom face. But overall, I was able to get a really good pocket. I don't like rectangular stringing holes, but again, these are kind of semantics. You can still string it really well. So it has kind of a deep mid pocket, really good channel, 2 straights, strung it with all black hero mesh because I really like the way all black looks for defenders. Kind of see Callum with his stick and it's all black, so looks a little mean and menacing. But the pocket strung well, same stringing as the hammer, just with that added pinch point, which makes it easier to get some channel. So overall, I used to recommend the tank for almost everyone for defense, and I think that this will be the head I recommend for defense now. The improvements they made with the pinch, the scoop, were really crucial. I think made a really fantastic head, and they lowered the price point as well, which always helps. So great work, STX. Make sure you guys check this out. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and thanks for watching.